Good morning. Welcome to Praise Center. We're glad that you're here with us. Welcome to those who are watching online. I hope you had your fill of family and food this week. And some of you are probably trying to finish off so you can see the back of your refrigerator again. And good luck to you on that. I know that's a mission of mine. But we're excited for what God is doing among us and what God is going to do here in this place and here and there at home. Today, Pastor preaches part 4 of the age of outrage. The age of outrage. We've looked at so many things that we as people of God can do to counter the cultural outrage that we see all around us. And today, we're going to talk about presence, showing up and being there. When I was a young pastor, associate pastor, my first time as a pastor, youth pastor, the guy I served under, Pastor Phil, he said, when you go to the hospital, be there. Don't just be there to check it off your list or just to say hi, but be there. It's about being present. It's about showing up. So today, let's hear from God. Amen. Is everybody ready to hear from God today? All right. Pastor Ray, would you come? There you are. I could have sworn you went this way.
Who was that masked man and where is that masked man? Well, good morning again, everybody, and welcome to service today. We are, as Pastor Terry said, in part 4 of living a counterculture kind of a lifestyle, and we've talked about one thing that we do, being counterculture, is to live with a mission, and our mission truly is from God. It's not like the Blues Brothers. It truly is from God. And part of that mission is to live in community. We are not intended to do this life and do the work of the Lord alone. We are to do it in community. And then another part 3, was about kindness and being kind to one another. And today, as Pastor Terry has already alluded to, I want to talk about presence or being there. And I think as our culture becomes more and more broken, has anybody else noticed brokenness in our culture? As it becomes more and more broken, then the Jesus followers bring out the best in that culture. That's what we want to do. And I think we're living in a divided country, at least politically today. Am I right in that? Yeah, and I don't think anybody really wants that. And, we've had some divided times in the history of our country. The most notable is the Civil War. And there have been other times as well. But when we're in a culture that's like our culture today, that's when we need to live counterculture. We need to live Christ's values in the forefront in order to make a difference. And that's what we're called to do, is to make a difference. I say at the end of almost the Morning Minute with Mitch, be blessed, love God, and go make a difference today. That's on purpose, because that's our calling, is to go make a difference. And that's God's directive to us. Sometimes we don't even know when we make a difference. I'm going to use John as an example carefully here, because I didn't get a chance to talk to him about it ahead of time. It's okay. Thanks. I got permission from Mac to talk about John. That's not normally how we do it, but okay. He had a friend that contacted him, and kind of the least expected thing, and I'm not going to tell the whole story here, but basically said, you didn't know this, but when we were in high school, I looked up to you, and I wanted to be like you. And John never knew that that was the case until just a couple days ago. And so you don't always know. And he was living counterculture. He was, a Christian and many times in a group that was not. And he played football. He was in the drama stuff. He was involved in a lot of things. And you wonder sometimes, am I just the odd person out, or am I influencing the culture around me? I wish I could tell you the rest of it, but he definitely impacted the world around him. And occasionally, somebody comes back and tells us that, and we realize that we've made a difference in somebody's life. So if you're filling in blanks, and remember the outlines are up on the website, and you can find them and add your own notes to it. Counterculture, our presence influences happiness of the people around us. And some other words for presence, it's being there, it's making an appearance, it's showing up, it's giving our attention to, and even to say, I'm home. I'm home. Jody used to say, when I had the short commute, kind of like I have now, from work to home, I'd walk in and I'd still be going like this, this song didn't work right, this scene wasn't working, and she used to just stop and she'd smile and she'd say, are you home yet? I'd say, nope, not yet, but I'll be there any minute now. We're getting there. So it's a one thing. Our one thing is to be present for those that God places in our path. And it's hard to do. We've all, I used to see other pastors sometimes, they'd be talking to somebody, and somebody would walk by that they needed to make a contact to, and they would draw their attention out here, and then in kind of a clumsy way, get to the person they needed to talk to. And I said, I'm never going to do that. Remember when you said you were never going to be like your parents? I'm never going to do that. And then you find yourself doing that same type of thing. So our presence is very important. Cornell University did a study using milk chocolate. My kind of study. Sign me up. I'm ready to be there. They did a study where they had people rate chocolate. They said, we got 10 different kinds of chocolate. We want you to rate them high or low, and they gave them a rating system and everything. And so everybody rated the chocolate to see which one was the best. Well, what they didn't know is the chocolates were all the same. All came from the same bar. They just broke pieces off. And the only difference was, let me see if I got it in my pocket, I do. The person who was doing this study, while some of them were kind of working through things, he'd come over and kind of say, how you doing? Doing okay? Yeah, okay. And the other ones, he would be like this while they were working. And the chocolates that got rated, remember, they're all the same. The ones that got rated low were the ones when the person leading it paid no attention to them. And the ones that got rated high were the ones where the person gave, the moderator gave them attention. Our children sometimes just want our presence. Let's see, Piper's downstairs working. Is she doing the Christmas? She's down, okay. So she will often say, Grandpa, come on upstairs. Why? Because I want you to be with me. Why? Just because. What are we going to do? I don't know. We get upstairs. She's playing with her dolls. What do you want me to do? Oh, just stay there. Okay. I don't know if I was as tuned in with my own kids. I'm maybe more tuned in, tried to be, John, but with the grandkids and say, okay, she just wants somebody there while she plays with the dollhouse, which I know nothing about. Give me the guys that you fight with, and I got that down, but not that. So the Word became human and made his home among us. Home, key word. He made his home. He was there. He was present. He showed up. He gave attention. That's in John 1:14. In Ephesians it says, I pray that from his glorious unlimited resources, he will give you power, he will empower you with inner strength through his Spirit. Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust him. Home, attention, presence. Now some may say, well, I don't get how that has anything to do with being countercultural. How does that have anything to do with being countercultural? Well, and I'm going to pick on one thing this morning, but it's not about one thing. We are not so much eye to eye anymore as this. Want to make it quiet in the room real quick? Just pull your phone up. The American Psychological Association developed a new term called technoference. Here's the definition. It refers to the interruptions in interpersonal communications caused by attention paid to personal technological devices. In other words, it's that thing you're looking at, your phone, your tablet, and you don't hear the question your kid or your friend or your mom or your boyfriend asked you. And I actually had a cartoon. Do we get the cartoon up there? I'm not sure I can read it. I made it so small on my screen. It's back here. Okay. It says, can you guys read it? Read that? It says, most of the new arrivals seem incapable of conversation. They just stare at their hands in despair. There's new information that tells us that a lot of device usage leads to depression and loneliness. Steve Jobs said about the first smartphone, every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. You know, the phones have way more memory, way more computing power than the first computers I had. Of course, the first computers I had were pretty primitive. Now, the CEO now says, because they realize that they can be abused, we're going to now help people understand how much time they're spending on their phones. So, it's like pain pills. They should be tools, not something that cause addictions. What does this have to do with counterculture? If we're so connected with anything that it keeps us from making the contacts that God wants, it keeps us from our mission, then that becomes a problem. And it's not just one generation. It can be millennials, Gen Zs. Lots of people have digital distractions. And maybe there should be warning labels like on cigarettes. This device can be bad for your attention span, for your memory, for creativity, for stress, for sleep, for exercise, and most importantly, for relationships. Now, before you think I'm negative on phones or devices, I'm not. And it's not just about devices. It's just the most prevalent thing in our society. I'm actually preaching off a device here this morning. My music was in the device. I have a pedal here that turns the pages if I want to. I like technology, but we have to master technology, not let technology master us. And it can keep us from primary things. But it could be other things. I just want to be clear here. It could be TV. It could be a hobby, golf, hunting, guitars, whatever, motorcycling, whatever yours happen to be. Matter of fact, I know people that have given up golf clubs because it took a prevalent place, too prevalent a place in their lives. And in some cases, made them act a way because that little ball didn't go where they wanted it to, act in a way that was not appropriate. So we're not down on phones. Matter of fact, I've got a drawer of old phones. I know you're supposed to recycle them, but I like the memory. I had the big one. I have the big one that flipped out like this. It had a whoop, and then he went with the antenna. Hello? Can you hear me now? And then it became real popular to have little tiny ones. Little bitty tiny ones. You put them in your pocket and go, where'd that thing go? I can't find it. So it's not about phones, but I'm going to use phones as the example this morning. There's a thing on YouTube, if you get a chance to look it up. Some girl is feeding the birds by the ocean, and she's going, my phone! She threw her phone. And the look on her face was, my phone. Don't be so conformed to culture that you fit into it without thinking. Instead, let God transform you by changing the way you think. So how do we talk about this without having a Bible verse that says, don't let anything take the first place of God. Don't let cell phones take the first place. Don't let pads. Don't let computers. Let's tell a couple of stories here. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the Passover festival. When Jesus was 12 years old, they attended the festival as usual. After the celebration was over, they started home to Nazareth, but Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents didn't miss him at first because they assumed he was among the other travelers. But when he didn't show up that evening, they started looking for him among their relatives and friends. And when they couldn't find him, they went back to Jerusalem to search for him there. 3 days later, they finally discovered him in the temple, sitting among the religious teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Mark that phrase, listening to them and asking questions. All who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. His parents didn't know what to think. Son, his mother said to him, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been frantic. We've been searching for you everywhere. But why did you need to search, he asked. Did you not know that I must be in my father's house? But they didn't understand what he meant. Now, besides, they probably wouldn't, in today's society, win Attentive Parent of the Year awards. How difficult would it be to be Jesus' parents? You think it would be difficult? Imagine this sign, this scenario. You don't know everything, do you? Maybe I do. Or yes, I do, Dad. Yes, I do, Father. Here's that phrase. Jesus was listening and asking questions. He was present. He was there. He was tuned in. One of the things in what's going on right now in our society is, with all the, what do they call it, e-learning or teletherapy or all the things where we're using computers because of the coronavirus, that it's hard for some people to kind of stay in there when your focus is, only this big. It's tough to keep that focus for a long period of time rather than when you're in a whole room with lots of things going on. Maybe you've noticed this at ball games. I've noticed this. When you watch a ball game like baseball on TV, you only see what the camera wants you to see. But when you actually go to the game, you can watch what's happening in the dugout. You can watch what's happening out in the bullpen. You can watch people in the stands. There's lots of other things. You get so much bigger picture. It's much easier to stay tuned in, for me anyhow, when you're actually at the game. Now, Jesus didn't really have to ask questions. He was in his Father's house listening and asking questions. He was there because listening validates people. Just like the chocolate experiment. When the guy was there, they rated things higher. Listening validates people as valuable. There's a new phrase out called phubbing. Everybody say phubbing. 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 It's a combination of phone plus snubbing. Somebody said 99% of all text and social media notifications can wait until you're done being in another person's presence. Here's my second story. But the Lord said to her, Dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. One thing. The one. One thing being concerned about. And Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. Pivot point. Jesus was asking questions. Asking questions is our Father's business. Being with people and connected, present, is being about our Father's work. No one needed to tell him, Jesus, about human nature, for he knew what was in each person's heart. And again, he said, did you not know that I must be about my Father's business? I'm going to come back to Mary and Martha here in a minute. But how do we increase our influence or your presence with others? I'm just going to give you some simple things here. Number one, ask. 4 things to ask. Number one, ask this. Do I really need all the noise? Do I really need all the distractions? Do I really need all that's going on around me? In Psalms it says, be still and know that I am God. We have trouble being still because it's like, I'm bored. I need a fun distraction. I need lots of things going on all the time. The truth is, most of us don't like being still. So how do I raise kids and grandkids in this culture? Number one, these are just two sides. Number one, look in the mirror. And if all the time somebody's trying to talk to you, you're like, just a minute, I got to do this. Look in the mirror and see. Now, I've been to people's houses where you want to have a conversation with them, and the TV is so loud, and they're so locked in that you can't even talk to them. I've been to hospital rooms where I've said, would you mind if I turn the TV off for a minute? Because you can't have a conversation. So I'm picking on this, but it's not the only thing. Do I need all the noise? Does this have to be going on now? Is this the one thing that is most important? One discovered what the one thing was. So the first question is asked, do I need all the noise? The second question is, what matters most? This is identifying relational values. What matters most here? Have you ever thought deeply about what kind of friend do I want to be? What kind of spouse do I want to be? What is that role? What kind of grandparent do I? What kind of coworker do I want to be? Where does that fit in the hierarchy of things that are important? What's the one? What kind of relational legacy do we want to leave? So Jody and I went to a funeral. Johnny went to last Friday and Saturday. A wonderful guy. His name was Gary Damiani. Young by today's standards. And he was a guy that worked on vehicles for the gas company or something like that. But he touched so many people's lives. I mean, I say that to say he wasn't like, in the public forum all of the time. But he was involved in all kinds of things. And when he was there, he was there. I worked out with him for several years. And he was like right in it, right there. And he was always fun to be with. And he always gave you full attention. And he always really focused in. And he was present. And we heard a story. I mean, we heard things we didn't know, Jody, at the funeral, because they had a lot of people talk at the funeral. And his brother said, he was like 9 years younger, a big Italian family. And his brother was watching cartoons, and then Gary came out, and when he came out, he turned to the religious station. And he asked his brother, he said, do you know if you're going to heaven? Do you know that you're not going to hell if you don't believe in Jesus? And his brother said, well, I'm not. I'm not going. That's not right. He goes, and Gary said, well, yeah, it is. I'm sorry, but it is. And so his little brother went to his mother and said, Mom, this is what Gary said. She goes, no, that's not true. But he said, I've never told this story until much later in life. So he decided he was still worried about it. So he found the scriptures that were Jesus talks about these things, what happens after death. And the way he phrased it, he said, I decided I'd ask for even a higher authority than mother. I'd go to even a higher authority. And he said in his room, he prayed the prayer of salvation. I forget how old he was. He must have been like 9 or 10 or something like that. Gary would have been in his teens somewhere. But he had impact on so many people. I mean, everybody had a story. Everybody had a story. Have we thought about the legacy that we want to leave, a relational legacy? You can't do it if you're not present. We have to be, and we can all, I know I can work on this more. And 4 hours a day on the device back here in the old back pocket is not as important as a few minutes of conversation really focused in with your kids or others that are significant to us. Ask, do I need the noise? Ask, what matters the most? Ask, can I do without it occasionally? Could I power it down and still live? Can you turn it off? No, I'd rather tithe more. Anything but that. It's too much. The American Psychological Stress Report said 75% of American adults agree that periodically unplugging or taking digital detox would be good for their mental health. And there's a new phobia. It's called nomophobia. No mobile. Nomophobia. I'm not making this stuff up. This is stuff. It's out there. At least I'm not into gambling or drugs or pornography or all these things, but it's still, if it controls you, I say this about anything, if anything controls you, it's a problem. And I've also said, and I'll say it again, because I believe it so strongly, you control the environment you're in as much as it's within your ability, or get out of the environment. You be the influencer. Whatever the situation is with your family, with your friends, on the football team, whatever it is, whatever your sphere is, you be the influencer in the situation. Powering down occasionally, good for the heart, mind, soul. It's good for your faith, and it's good for relationships. Think about what we do with our phone. Sometimes we give it the attention first thing in the morning. There's something I have to look at here. What would happen if we gave our spouse attention first thing in the morning? We touch our phone a lot. What would happen if we paid more attention to our spouse? Anybody else know these things are expensive? We spend a lot of money on these things. Okay, you get the point. Last point. And we're purposely trying to end a little early here, trying to limit the time altogether. Should I force limits? Or in other words, should I install some speed bumps along the way? In other words, set it aside purposely for a period of time. Sometimes with children, we say, we're putting the timer on, or we have a timer on the device. You get so many minutes on the device, and then we're going to do something outside, or we're going to do something different. But do we need to put some limits on that we put on? Do we need to do that? Can we do that? If we can't, why not? Present, being there, being home. All these things. It communicates that you matter to me. In our world, it's countercultural to let people know that they really matter to us. And when people matter to us, and when we can focus in and we can really be present, and I know, I have lots of things going on too, in a lot of different realms. I get it, I do. But when we can do that, when people really matter, you treat them differently. You extend more grace. You encourage them more. You love them deeper. It affects how we relate to people. And when that happens, people actually become happier people. They become actually more alive. I want to read the whole story of Mary and Martha. It's not very long. It's kind of as our conclusion here today. The one. Remember the one. The one thing. The one thing. Mary, the one thing. That's just an important phrase to me. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner that she was preparing. It was turkey. No, it doesn't say that. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, can't you just picture this? Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me. But the Lord said to her, my dear Martha, you are so worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. The one thing. Let's stand together. Please don't leave here today saying he preached a message on cell phones, against cell phones. All right, that's not the point. The point is that Jesus needs to be first. And in order for him to be first in our lives, we have to be really present in other people's lives. That's how it works. So anything that prevents that, as I've been preparing for the morning minute with Mitch, and we've gone through the entire Bible looking for Jesus in every book of the Bible. But one of the phrases that came up while I was studying this was that Jesus had an upside-down kingdom. It wasn't, power from the top trickling down to the little people down below. It was an upside-down kingdom where we served one another and we're there for one another. And that's something that's countercultural, is living that way. Difficult for me. My guess is it's difficult for a lot of us for different reasons. And again, it could be a lot of different things that keep us from the one thing, the most important thing. So would you bow your heads and close your eyes? And I just want to say, are there any today that would say, yeah, that's me. For me it's this, or for me it's that. For me, maybe it is a device. Just slip your hands up right now. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, quite a few throughout the room. So it's not just me. That's good. Let's pray. Lord, I always pray and always want that we are not the same when we leave as we were when we came in. Lord, I pray that you would give us courage and wisdom to make the decisions that we know we need to make in order to be more present, in order to validate people, in order to bring out the best in others. May we love others the way that you love us. Oh, Lord, I need work in that. Help me in that. And help us all. In Jesus' name I pray.